Hi, folks. Roage here. I want to thank you all for just hanging in there with me. I've been going through this, regular cathartic process where I go through a complete internal shakedown and reevaluate everything about myself, everything about my entire process, and you know, try to figure out, um, you know, uh, errors that crop up, or that I have false assumptions, and I know some of you may not think so, but there's nothing really special about me, um, except for the fact that something weird happened to me, and I just wanted to let everybody know, what it was, and see if they can replicate that in their own experience, because to me it's pretty cool. So I started really analyzing a lot of things, and I put the revealing the Holy Grail monstrosity out there, and I'm gonna leave that out there because just as a, let's say, a marker, because there is nothing like failure that really grows you, and since to me, I say, hey, well, failure for me is something that gets me to a more um, a better place. I just don't want to make that same mistake again. So let me go through and tell you what I've discovered here in the last few days, and this came as a result of talking to others that have gone through the process, and have an insight, because we each have our own blinders, even me, and I need others to actually bounce things off of, and do an analysis. And this is what I find out. Now, I'm going to take a step back from actually going into the Grail process. I mean, that material it's already sufficient. But I've discovered something actually pretty interesting. I started analyzing, and I have been since 2006, that, okay, I have this great experience, and it's mind-blowing, and first thing I want to do is, hey, man, if I can do it, you can do it, and I want to tell everybody about it, and of course, that was frustrating, because it took me 2 years before I could even find somebody that had sufficient knowledge to, even confirm anything I said. I mean, everybody else looked at me like, hey, what are you on drugs or something? So I mean, I couldn't relate it to anybody meaningfully, and it took a while, and then slowly, as time went on, I learned a little bit more, and look, I mean, it was a learning process, and I was just bad at it at first. However, there was a time where, wow, my interaction with somebody actually produced the same effect in their experience as it was in my experience. And the more I, played around with it, the better I got at it. Now, what I found out was this, okay? It took me 42 years. Now, I'm not telling you anything that you can't discover on your own when you want to. And when you devote the kind of attention that you need to devote to what it is, to the process. So, there's no surprises here. But the fastest way I have found to do this is face-to-face, one-on-one. At first, I was doing a lot of writing. I thought, well, hey, I'll just, write the, process down, and people can read it, and wow, lo and behold, I won't have to sit there, and walk people through the process. It'll be a lot easier, because then it'll, franchise it, and it'll take off, and everything will grow and spread all over the place. It's unstoppable. But writing it didn't work because, of course, I was using words, and everybody has their own subjective understanding of what the definition of the word is. So I say one thing, people think in think something completely different because they don't have the same definition of the word that I use. Right or wrong, don't matter. But then, after that, I said, I started, engaging people on a forum, and that seemed to work. And wow, and instead of instead of being unsuccessful, I could actually achieve it using electronic means on a forum, and I'd only have to type maybe 100 or 200 pages for every person that was being curried through the process. That's a lot of work, folks. And the amount of work that I put in trying to help people through the process was enormous. Of course, hey, it's me. I'm diligently going through and typing these responses and making mistakes and obviously, and so then I found, the video medium. Again, and it was only so successful. Now, get it, folks. I mean, you can go through the media and the videos over and over and over again, and eventually, for some of you, yeah, you'll actually get it. But I think it's very important to understand why that doesn't work, and why exactly the fastest way to do it is to sit across the room with me face to face. So I started analyzing, well, why is that? I'm sitting here at my last job, right? I'm in my boss's office. And we'd had probably weeks of conversations where I'm sitting in his office and I'm relating the same kind of information of the law to him. And then after 3 years, he was no closer than when I first got there. I'm trying to analyze, wait a minute, why am I sitting here doing this? I mean, is this the purpose of me being here? And no, that was basically a distraction to show me what, the wrong way to going about it. So, this guy couldn't get it. And, of course, he's going to be who he needs to be. And, hey, God bless him. And for those of you who know me, you know why that's a joke. But then, I get fired from this job in a big way because, guess what? We have ethical and moral differences, and I really couldn't go where these guys needed me to go. And I was hoping that they were better men than they were. So, and of course, they weren't. So I'm sitting around, and, two guys walk up, thinking that they're there to sell me insurance, and, we get to talking. And certain topics pop up, and it starts leading us down this pathway. So, I totally sit there and relate a little bit of information of what I've learned and what I've known. And, of course, there were a couple of blown minds on my front porch. All right. Now, that took about 3 hours because, I wasn't even teaching them the law. I was just showing them some things in their immediate experience that made a lot of sense to them. But they said, now, I told them, I says, look, one of the hard things you're going to do is once you leave this yard, it's going to be hard for you to come back, even if you want to, because as soon as you get off the property, you're going to return back in your little universe, and it's not the same as my universe, and the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to forget a lot of what I said, and in fact, you're going to forget why it was important, at which point you'll conclude it, being, some sort of, weird trip down, Alice in Wonderland. So I told him, I says, now, if you guys can make it back, I'll teach you the law, but I need you to be fresh. I said, right now, you've got a lot of stuff that you need to go over, a lot of stuff that you need to think about, and it's going to take time for it to settle down. I says, when you come back, you'll be fresh, and I will sit down and teach you the law. And I said, bring a six-pack, man, that would be a good thing, right? So, lo and behold, like 2 days later, one of the guys came back and brought a 12-pack, even better. So I knew he was serious. So I sat down, gave him a pat of pamper, and I just ran him through the law. I mean, in about 2 to 3 hours, okay? And Ilian, the lovely Beebles, of course, she was watching the whole thing. And this guy totally got it. I mean, there was, I mean, he just snapped right on. I mean, there was nothing in there that I was hitting with that he couldn't, that didn't seem reasonable to him. It was easy for him. It made sense, and totally got it. Total snapped on. My wife was looking at it. She says, man, she says, it was amazing. I could just see that. I could just feel the energy, of your conversation. And I could just see the changes in it. And he says, man, that was wonderful. I says, and she says, well, that's, after, the movie failure, my wife is, critiquing the process. I mean, I had to agree with her. I mean, it was bad. But she says, man, if you could just capture that energy, he says, that's enough. And, I really started thinking about it. And I says, I eventually looked and said, okay, by itself, the law does nothing. And without, actually applying it and without, doing anything about it, it does actually nothing. My error was actually thinking that was the mechanism that was taking place here. That somehow I could just simply relate some information to you and everything was going to be just fine. You'd be able to figure it out. Well, I mean, obviously, when you're watching the video, I mean, the people that don't get it, it's easy for them. They come back and say, hey, this didn't work. It doesn't work. Why? And, of course, me, I just said, well, apparently you didn't want it to. Without really understanding it at a deeper level. To truly know why, and that's my fault. Of course, I had to get sick, get fired, and all kinds of weird things had to happen, and it's just the universe hitting me upside the head with a brick. So, it's not necessarily the law. So, and why is it that when I'm sitting across from somebody, that they're actually getting it? Intuitively, I can sit there and answer their questions when I'm sitting in front of them because I got no clutter. It's not a broadcast out to a whole bunch of different people. And, I notice when I'm doing these sorts of things, broadcasting out, I get intuitive feedback from people that I know that video is going to touch at some point. And it comes back into me. But, I explained that on the appeal video. But, it creates a distraction. But when I'm one-on-one with somebody, that's the full experience. They have the benefit of all of the subconscious communication that goes on. It's easy for them to see the sincerity. It's easy for them to see the confidence. And it's easy for me to study them and study their reactions and answer their questions in the most appropriate way. Well, I can't do that in a mass media type way because everybody is in a different place and everybody needs different things answered in a different in a different sequence. So, I'm thinking, well, how do I capture the same thing? So it came to me the other day. Well, maybe what I could do is film sessions. Have a couple of cameras where you can see the effect of me speaking to somebody. And at which point, if I came up with enough of these sessions, then it would probably answer most of the questions in the places where most people are at the time. But again, I don't want to waste people's time. So. Some people may have to watch many different sessions before they get the right keys for them to actually cause them to do what it is they need to do. So I'm thinking about this. Now, I know there's an effect around me, and it extends about 100 feet in all directions. And it's what I call the bubble. And I'm trying to understand what's different about being inside the bubble than me talking on the phone. Now, I can talk people through the process, but it literally takes months. And I had an experience where one of my friends, I'd been talking to him for like 2 years, but there was a particular key he couldn't get. So he came to visit me. In about 15 minutes in the car, he totally got it. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, what's happening? There's some sort of, non-visible interaction taking place. So, and it behaves like, light or sound, where, it attenuates at a distance. Maybe, the root mean, what the heck is that called? At a certain distance, there's a calculation that you do that will predict, the distance that a waveform will carry. So, and it falls off after a certain point, and inverse squared law is what it's called. So there is an effect. And why, of course, does it take so long? Now, if it was actually a waveform itself, then how much of it is actually rebroadcast accurately when I'm talking on the phone? Well, maybe not very much of it at all. But maybe that's not actually what's taking place. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's not so much the information that I'm relating as what the listener is actually doing themselves. Now, if you look at the website, I looked at my entire process of trying to share this information as an errand vanity. Like, I have some sort of obligation, and that, I work diligently to try to help people. But really, I have to say that there is a vanity component. I don't feel that way, but there is a vanity to thinking that, well, I can just pass you some information, and wow, man, it's gonna completely transform you. No, I'll pass you some information. You will internally process that information. It will have an internal effect on you, and you will facilitate the transformation. Me, I'm just a puppet in your puppet show. Okay, but something inside you is actually doing it, and you have all the power in that. Not me. It's not like I have some sort of magic elixir that I can just pour out or feed you, and then you're going to just, magically get it. Not it. All right? Now, it took a brick upside the head to realize that. But what is actually taking place? All right? And why, law and responsibility is very important to that. Well, and I'm stepping outside, watching, looking at the process from outside and what's occurring. And this is what I think is actually occurring. When you look at responsibility, and you look at who you are, and you look at questions like why you're here, it causes you to focus inwardly. Why that's helpful is you begin to say, hey, wait a minute, maybe there is a systemic process or a reason why things in my experience are occurring. Now, the cool thing about the law is when you start applying principles of natural law to your experience, then it it takes the mystery out of it. And when you can witness the law and application in your experience, and you can see these things happening according to these principles, what it does is it causes one to say, hey, wait a minute. I'm not just haphazardly bouncing around here in a pinball game. Something's in play here beyond me. And of course, it's the old axiom. Yeah, I didn't invent this, right? What was it? A belief in a higher power. Okay. Hey, that's, I didn't corner the market on that. Okay, that's been around ages. Nothing special there. That has a truly transformative effect. What the law simply does is when you can apply the law in your experience, and you can see things proceeding and adhering flawlessly, to those lawful principles, all of a sudden you start recognizing it. Wait a minute. Someone else is in control here. Well, technically, it's not someone else. It's you. You've just convinced yourself that you're this little flesh puppet. Once you realize that you're not that flesh puppet, that you are actually this immense, limitless being that exists in eternity, then you realize, hey, the flesh puppet really doesn't matter. Who's this executive authority that's in place? And now that I see how that executive authority actually operates, then, hey, wow, I'm no longer distracted by the puppet show. Then, at which point, one of the crucial things happens. You begin to trust that authority. When you begin to trust that authority, that's when that authority starts exposing him or herself to you, him and herself to you, in a more substantive way. And it feeds back on itself. The more you learn, the more you apply, the more you learn, the more you apply, until you hit a threshold, and then you realize. Then you have that transformative thing. So, yeah, the law is important. But more important is your ability to trust yourself and know that everything is okay, and you have always been in control here. You just sort of forgot who you were. That's what's taking place here. That's what's actually happening. So, how do I, through the course of these videos, cause somebody to do that? Well, I don't know. Maybe this video is helpful. All right, but what I know of sound, okay, it's probably a sound waveform that's at a high frequency, and people who are at a higher state of consciousness, their internal mechanisms, and you can call it the heart, whatever it is, okay, I don't know, I haven't cut myself open, I haven't analyzed it, okay, and I don't think a whole lot of other people understand it very, very well either. But I believe there's a mechanism within us, and if you want to call it the heart, that's fine. When people are operating a higher level of consciousness, they're generating a massive amount of both inaudible sound and electromagnetic radiation. Okay, so when I'm sitting across from somebody, talking to them, the words are just blah, 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 blah. Meaningless, right? However, just merely the fact that you're in a zone, in the bubble, whereby most of the distracting, discordant sound is driven away, gives one the ability, once you're bathed in it long enough, another person then starts resonating at the same frequencies, thereby causing internal changes and facilitating, them down, significantly down the process to where they can get to the change. It's like, going to a suntan booth, you come out different. It's the same thing. It's like one candle lighting another. All right, well, if people who are conscious don't realize that is the mechanism, then somehow they may be distracted by the material and think that is the true mechanism by which the information is being related, or the communion is occurring, or the effect is being manifest. If they realize that, wait a minute, this is not a physical process, this is a spiritual process, and no, there is no detectable, at least through the senses, detectable effect. Now, both my wife and I have recognized long ago some interesting effects of us being in proximity to things. Lampposts, lights going on and off. My wife has this great ability to completely destroy television reception, at a distance. I mean, it's a superpower. Which, to me, I say, I don't want to watch TV anyway, so, all right, that's a good power to have. I have another effect where, oddly enough, mechanical devices and things in my environment tend to work better. In fact, I had people convinced at work, but that merely because I was in the room or touching their electronic device, that was the actual reason why it was working. And I laughed and I said, well, there are other things here. Most of it is people don't realize that they're unconsciously sabotaging their own experience, and people who are conscious don't do that. So therefore, things work because they don't sabotage their own experience. But that wasn't all of it. Of course, I'm not going to sit there and say, "Hey, man, I got this massive waveform. I'm like a light shining light out over there, and you're totally bathed with it." So therefore, you're going to immediately snap on and transcend just by touching the hem of my garment. That's not it. Because guess what? You're in command of your experience, and you'll do it when you're ready. The guy who thought he was my boss, that I'd been talking to for 3 years and couldn't get it. Well, why not? Well, he didn't want to get it. He wasn't ready for it. It wasn't going to happen for him. And there's no amount of being bathed in the suntanning booth that was going to actually change his choice. And that is the choice that we do have. Okay? It's really not an egoic choice. I mean, it's not a function of your flesh suit. It's the being inside. When it decides you're ready, then nothing will stop you. If you're not ready, there's anything outside of you is going to be able to do to change that. Because it's an internal process. And once we realize that we've got to want it, then it doesn't have to be material that I provide you. Although, the law, it's out there everywhere. It's inside you. You can discover it for yourself, and it's fun to do that. Prove things to yourself. Take the the axioms and the principles and actually verify it in your experience. That's fun, especially when you see it happening and working. That's an incredible confidence booster. But all it really does is it boosts your confidence in yourself, such that you trust yourself, right? The one being that runs the place, enough to where you can allow that being to totally transform you and change your experience into, not the continual horror movie and frustration show, but that interesting science documentary where you're going and analyzing and your experience is bringing you new knowledge and new experience such that you grow and have a better understanding of the world around you, and more importantly, your own internal nature. Okay, and that's the crux. That's the crux of that particular process. So, although the material on my website is very useful, when you're ready, a guy like me, the suntanning booth, will show up in your experience and bathe you in that waveform such that you can snap on. However, I'm ready for this to actually take off in a big way because, mankind right now, we're totally blowing it here. How much more absurd does it have to be until we conclude, hey, wait a minute, we've had enough of this nonsense? Once we get to that point, I think it'll go very quickly. Now, those people who do know as I know, they know what I'm seeing. And some of them, probably wrestling with the same question. I said, well, why is it that, some people are there and others are not? And, bless their hearts, there are people out there looking for answers. And then they go to these people that, others say, hey, man, these guys got the answers, man. And they go there and they sit and they look at them with skepticism, and hey, that skepticism is a good quality. It's necessary, and they get nothing from it. And they don't understand, and they look to the guy who recommended him, and he says, "What? This guy, he didn't help me a bit, man. Didn't make sense to me. What the heck is he even talking about?" This is something that each one of us actually has to look at. And, how do we do that? It's not hard. Just go someplace where you're alone. Preferably someplace quiet. Because with the power grid, I mean, everything's vibrating at 60 cycle, and that's not a natural frequency. That's creating discord. I mean, you've got engine noise, you've got airplanes, automobiles, you've got things creating discordant sound in your environment. And if you can get to a place in nature actually, left on its own, will balance, and it will produce harmonics that are beneficial to you, and it will provide the best chance for you to actually internally look at yourself, evaluate your life experiences, and be able to take that little step. And once you do, hey, expect wonderful, cool changes. But hey, don't beat yourself up about it. Okay, you're not here by accident. You're here for a reason. And if you're the guy that's supposed to, experience something traumatic or something tough, hey, that's your function. And I would say you don't have a lot of control in that anyway, so you might as well get as much out of the experience as you possibly can. Pay attention, record it, witness it properly, and at some point that will be shared with all of us, and all of us is sort of a misnomer because it's just one consciousness, participating in this universe experience. And whether you're paying attention or not really doesn't matter anyway, because it's okay. Cut yourself a break. Hey, it's okay. You can't blow it here. I mean, hey, you're covered. Everybody, at some point, it'll all be reconciled. And look, you're okay. You did good. All right. So if you can recognize that, hey, you don't have to listen to me. At some point, you'll realize it yourself, and everything will be all right. So hopefully, this video actually will show you a little bit more about it. Now, until you're truly ready for that to happen, and that's going to come through your own introspection. That's going to come through your own spiritual shakedown and stopping and a lot of times it happens when you stop lying to yourself. Right? Because a lot of you people say, hey, I feel great. Well, you feel great. Are you great? You feel happy. Are you happy? There's a big difference there. Are you happy? Are things going in a way for you that's useful to you? Whether or not you appear that, sometimes you just need a break. I mean, a soldier's best when he's well rested. If he never gets a rest, then he's useless. So again, hopefully this video can shed some light on some of the material, because I know some of you hitting that stuff and you're saying, what? It's a puzzle. Would you get to the point? Could you actually tell me what it is? Just tell me. And of course, it don't work that way. It's not me telling you. It's you telling yourself. And only when you're ready for you to tell yourself. I mean, you're the teacher, not me. I'm the student. My function is to study other people and answer their questions to their satisfaction, because they're the teacher and I'm the student. And if I can answer their questions to their satisfaction, well, I'll get a good grade. If not, they'll, look at me and say, this guy's a nut job, man. What does he got to? He's got nothing. So hopefully a lot of you, but look, all of this labor actually has paid off. There's a lot of people out there that truly know what I'm saying and can verify it, and are doing the same thing that I am. And I've heard from quite a few of them here lately, because, hey, they saw me. I was, beating my head against the wall, as I should have been, of course. And, they started saying, hey, man, just relax, started talking to me, and it says, look, what you're doing is really good. Oh, yeah, it is. I'm getting this great bump on my head from hitting myself with a wall. I got a bonus, So, hey, it's an adventure, I take it seriously, Hey, if it was easy, I'd be bored and I wouldn't be doing it, So, I mean, you just have to look at it, it's got to be hard. It's got to be tricky. It's got to be clever and hard to figure out, Otherwise, it ain't worth doing, It's like, why play a video game where you know all the answers, What's that? That's useless. You want something with the illusion that, hey, wait a minute, I could, my Super Mario brother could die, and I wouldn't be able to play the game anymore, or I'd have to put more quarters in, and so that's then that's the reason we do it. I mean, people know that once they get all the cheat codes, it's like, and that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about giving you the cheat codes. Okay. The law, what it does is it makes your experience purposeful and meaningful. It doesn't solve all the problems. It just makes it more purposeful and meaningful, and in that way, much more enjoyable. But it doesn't solve all the problems, because that's the fun of being here. You play this game on purpose. Don't worry. I'm not going to ruin that. In fact, you'll love it even more because, hey, wow, now, knowing a little bit of the rules of the game, actually, now you can actually work to your own mastery. I mean, we're not going to get it here. Certainly not in his flesh suit. I mean, this thing's useless, man. It doesn't give you any senses. I mean, what it does is it's a boundary. It keeps you from recognizing who you are, and once you break that barrier, you know who you are, then, there is a degree of safety. But look, life still hurts. Hey, if you cut yourself, it still hurts. I don't care how evolved you are, Somebody punches you in your face, it hurts, The trick is, well, how do I, what is it that I need to know that would avoid that whole punch in the face in the first place, and it's not any less tricky. Okay, so I'm not going to ruin anything. It's not like, oh, well, shoot, that just destroys the whole meaning and purpose of life. The guy just outed the whole thing. I mean, why do I even need to be here? No. That's not what it's about at all. So, just relax. It's okay, But hopefully this video here actually gives you some keys to just maybe change the way you approach the entire problem, right? And one of the things I used to say a long time ago, you don't find the truth. You have to stop, quit distracting yourself, and allow the truth to find you. Or you stumble backwards and fall into the truth trap. Or you're standing out on the street and the truth bus hits you. Or, you didn't see it, man. I didn't even see what was there. I thought the road was clear and the truth just came right up and hit me like a bus. That's more the way it is. So, hey, I'm Roage, and just going through another cathartic transformation, so being, attenuated and corrected just like everybody else. So you guys, enjoy your adventure, and, hey, if something happens, I'll let you know about it. So you all take care and have fun.